Hi, good evening, everybody, and Ayubowan. Thank you for joining into the TLRCONNECT program today, where we talk to an inspirational businesswoman who's weathered the storm during a number of times, and we are going to learn a little bit of strategies from her own thinking with relevance to COVID-19 and leadership in general. So I have the pleasure with me in introducing Dr. Janaki Kuruppu, the founder and chairperson of Mother Sri Lanka Trust, a respected business leader in Sri Lanka with a wealth of experience around her. Welcome to the program, Dr. Janaki.
Thank you, Nirmal, and Ayubowan to everyone.
So for everybody listening, I just want to give a small intro about TLR Now. TLR Now is your first stop for coaching, training, and mentoring services, all under one roof, bolstered by the presence of 80 plus experts across domains and locations. The umbrella of services are designed to provide solutions to a host of problems. TLR Now believes in providing structured, meaningful, and result-oriented coaching, training, and mentoring services, leveraging technology. TLR Now customizes programs through deep understanding of the various problems and the opportunities which arises in the world today. So once again, welcome to everybody listening from different parts of the world. So how are you doing, Janaki?
Okay, weathering the storm. Thank you. I must thank TLR and Nirmal, you for inviting me to be part of this discussion to share my thoughts, and just hope that we will come out of this soon and be able to recover from this crisis which we have never faced in our lives, anything like this before. So we just have to think new.
Yeah. Sure. I think let's get into a few of the questions that I have. I think this program will go into two stages. I would ask you some very specific and general questions to ensure that the audience gets a flavor of your thinking as a business leader. And with all probability, they can learn a few of those strategies and start implementing post-lockdown or even during this period of time. Thereafter, we'll open it up to the questions from the audience watching this live stream via YouTube and Facebook, and we'll take those questions as well. So to start off, Dr. Janaki, my first question to you is, leadership plays a very important role in any crisis. What do you think the role of the new leader should be during and post-COVID-19?
This is you talking from a company perspective, running an organization. It was Andrew Carnegie who said that take my people and leave my factory, and you will be just left with cobwebs. But demolish the factory and keep the people, we will build a new factory. I mean, so it is. We just have to look after the people. We have, whether it is you're leading a country or whether you're leading an organization. I think, we had to relook at that, the 3 Ps we were talking about, the people, planet, profit, rethink our weightages given onto those people coming first. And then there's the planet that is giving us a big message here on how we run our companies, not only our companies, how we run our life hereafter. I think this pandemic has given us a great opportunity to do one of the greatest transformations, if we can. Transformation of how we live, transformation of how we will run our countries or run our companies. That is only if we decide to take it like that. Whatever we say now, whatever we feel now, we feel there's so much of uncertainty, this is like the end of the world. But I don't know, humans have a nature, you come out of this, hopefully, and then forget all this and go on. That can also happen. But I strongly believe we should use this as an opportunity to make that paradigm shift on how we're going to transform our workplaces, how we are going to transform the places we work, the places we live, and so on. So post-COVID world, we're trying to now picture, we are still right now in this. We are in this storm. We are going through a storm. And as leaders, we have to still remain calm. We are all in this, in the middle of a stormy sea, and we are all in this ship together, more or less. But we have to remain calm and guide our people, coach our people, and kind of give that hope. You have to have an immense amount of hope at a time like this. So,
Yeah, thanks. I think it's an interesting point that you're trying to raise here, because from a leadership point of view, the true leaders emerge during a time of a crisis. And it's not about taking the easy way out or blindly following what others are trying to do. And when you look at certain examples in Sri Lanka and in the world, it seems like some of the leaders are trying to take the easy way out. And they are looking at loyalty of employees as well as a one-sided equation, because prior to COVID-19, they probably viewed their staff and employees as the best asset. But suddenly COVID-19 hits in, and we are talking about job cuts, job losses, salary cuts, etc. So I believe it's to do with the leaders' thinking process and how best that they can motivate their people moving forward. You talked a little bit of the opportunities, but before we get there, Dr. Janaki, can we look at some of the challenges, the obvious challenges that you see for the SME sector, and then thereafter take a lead on to what are the opportunities that you see emerging from the SME sector and from a world perspective?
yeah. I mean, the immediate from Sri Lankan SMEs or micro level, I work with a lot of micro enterprises as well. Immediate cash flow is the immediate issue, which because there's hardly any business happening. We are the country, we are under curfew for over a month now, and we are under a lockdown. So there is no business coming, there are no orders coming. So the people that I've been talking to also, the biggest worry is how do we manage our day-to-day expenses. So cash flow is a big challenge. Working capital, how to grow this business, and whether some of the whether the current businesses we are in, or in terms of the products and the services we are offering right now, whether there will be a demand for it immediately post this crisis, and if not, when will the demand for these products and services come out. So that is where we have to innovate. So that is where you can slowly change it to an opportunity as well, to think, okay, this is forcing us to think new. Within our expertise, within our infrastructure available in the organization, how can we be innovative to serve the current market need, at least to ride this wave for the next 6 months to 1 year. I still hope, I'm a very optimistic person, you can say, that we will come out of this, say, maximum 1 year. So in that, until then, how do we survive? So until then, how do we manage the cash flow? How do we manage our working capital? And how do we get some business into the organization will be the biggest challenge. So there is, inventions happening even in Sri Lanka on the medical equipment side, which we never did before. I mean, surprisingly, how soon people came up with the new innovations to serve the need of at this time. And then sanitization, this is, I'm just looking at the short term, sanitizing products. If any company have, but that is very narrow. I saw somebody coming up with designer wear masks. I don't know whether this is to match every day if we have to wear a mask. So something to match your what your dress you're wearing. So this is maybe a little positive way of looking at it, because these people are down, the moods are down. Amazing when people are pushed against the wall, how we'll jump back, how will I think we should look forward to many innovations as well coming out of this.
I think you're right. Innovation and creativity is one of the most important things, especially when you want to weather the storm during any crisis. And we see a lot of examples across the world where companies are re-looking into innovation in a big way. The Sri Lankan tech industry in particular has been at the forefront of that, something that we need to be quite proud about on some of the fantastic initiatives that they're doing at the moment. Let's get into a little bit more deeper subject. Dr. Janaki, I need to understand from you your thought process on what type of leadership styles should the leader follow during this particular pandemic, because this pandemic and crisis is something that we've never seen. It's unprecedented in our history, and to a certain degree the typical leadership style that one followed prior to this crisis cannot be followed moving forward. So in your view, what would be the typical leadership styles that a good leader needs to follow?
Again, I bring forward the compassionate leader because we have led companies that went through crisis before, but that was only our company, let's say, or only our industry, let's say, or only our country. In this particular case, it's the whole world going through this. So the employees will also be more understanding, because it's not the company's management that has got us into this trouble, or the country's leadership that has got us into this. It is a worldwide, it's basically a message from God, I would say. There's a spiritual side to this whole thing. I mean, what were we doing? This is a big wake-up call for us. Where do you think you are going? You know, telling the humans, it's like a big timeout. We've been given a timeout, stop everything, and to think, reflect, reformat, reboot, you know. So we have to really so a compassionate leader, but yet focused. We have to be preserved. We can't get all excited and upset and emotional, that if you're as a leader. So focused, and you have to identify your priorities. You will have to really think clearly. Clarity in your thinking is very important here, to identify what is the utmost priority for me to get my company back on track and to look after my people. So the whole picture, if you look at it, it's very complex, very complicated, and we might just not see that light at the end of the tunnel right now. So focus, compassionate, and be preserved. To you need to communicate. You need to communicate with your staff. This lull period, I mean, people don't know what's going on, and your staff doesn't know what's going on. So communication, all that is very important. But we are also learning. I mean, all of us, we have not faced this kind of thing before. So we are also like going through trial and error. Country leaders are going through trial and error. You have to take decisions fast. You have to, and if you take this decision or that decision, you're going to have consequences, repercussions, and we might take one direction and then it doesn't work out. Then we'll say, okay, we should have. There's no previous that much. I mean, the pandemics like this have happened before, but not in our lifetime. So.
Sure. I think it's an interesting point. There is a notion that we need to move away from survival of the fittest to survival of the most adaptable. I think you exemplified that a little bit in your previous comment as well. And from a leadership style perspective also, I think we've heard about this transformational leadership, but somewhat there are experts who claim that leaders probably need to follow a situational type of leadership at the moment, in the immediate short term, and then look at transforming the overall work processes, the business model, etc. You talked about communication, which is an important point. I want to take you through the next question in two ways. How are you going to communicate, or how have you communicated to your staff at this point of time during a 40-day long lockdown? And then similarly, what do you think would be the most important steps once these lockdown regulations are relaxed? What type of communication and what type of key messages should a leader probably give to their staff and the teams?
I mean, communication is it is very important right now, because we are all out of touch, more or less, in the sense working from home and all that. Sometimes that's the only thing we can do right now, because we are gauging the situation every day, trying to figure out what next. Every day the strategy seems to be revised or need to be revised or changed. So communication is something that we can do right now, and sometimes it's the only thing we can do right now. But in that communication, like I said, it's to connect with your staff. Now, personally, I find this setup, the working from home, all that also good for me, because I have more time to think clearly. Like when you're in an office, there's hundreds of people coming to you all the time when you're the CEO, and then you only actually get to think like maybe once you're back home or before early morning if you go before anybody comes to office or something like that. But here now you can plan your time. Nobody can just walk in whenever they want, and you have time to really think clearly, and you plan your meeting. So I take a conference call with the staff at a particular time. So by that time I'm prepared and I'm ready, and I'm very clear on what I want to say, which may not happen in a normal office setup which we were going through in terms of communication. So that could be an advantage of this kind of situation, because we don't communicate all the time. It's a chosen time, and you have something to say. Then the clarity, unfortunately, the leaders don't have much clarity. Although you can see even watching presidents of countries speaking, I mean, I think they're also human. I mean, they're also human. It's like we look up to these leaders of our countries and expect them to be, perfect. And how? I mean, if you haven't gone through there's nothing to read up even and see how to react in this situation. So you can't expect that. So clarity is very important when there's somebody listening and looking up to you for guidance. And the confidence. You have to have that confidence when you communicate, so that that's your role. Whether how you feel inside is a different matter. Your role is to give that confidence to everybody, and to keep it going. I feel, afterwards also, this post COVID, people will look at how companies reacted, how brands treated their staff, how companies treated their employees. And as consumers, even we should patronize companies that treated their staff better, or looked after their employees, because at this time, if you don't look after the people, I still feel it's so some companies may go for big donations for CSR, or to get the publicity, or I can still see some companies doing that. I look a little bit sickening to me. This is not that, but genuinely. And then their staff, they're not doing that much, going out and donating and all that. But internally, have you looked after your staff? How many people are you going to lay off? Are you going to do that? So I think we will also look at that, at how companies behave internally in treating their employees at the end of this.
That's another interesting point, because it's all about social impact, right, these days, and the impact that organizations need to create, not just the profit part of it. It also talks about the fact that we live in a VUCA world, and if at all we wanted a definition for VUCA, COVID-19 has brought the best definition of it. We also have another challenge, Dr. Janaki, as leaders. At times, if you take a very Sri Lankan perspective into this, the leadership is sometimes like a old boys club. Everybody knows everybody, and the typical leaders are male-oriented. Unfortunately, we don't have that much of a gender balance in the boardrooms, even though it is significantly improving over the last decade. So I want to get into something a little bit more personal. You've been a leader who fought in a man's world, very much in very tough industries before. What do you think the role of a female leader, and what would female leaders be bringing into the table post-COVID-19?
See, if you go now, when I said that the number one thing is looking after people, and the number one characteristic that a leader should have at this time is compassion, women are better at it. That's one side that female leaders have come, the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the understanding the people, looking at their emotions. And also I saw somebody has done research of how countries are handling the situation, and they have come out, I didn't say this, that the countries led by women are handling the situation much better. You may agree, disagree with that, starting from New Zealand to Germany to many countries. They're saying, okay, is there a particular characteristic then that the female has that is helping to handle this situation better, or is it just I normally think that it's balanced and this thing. So I think the empathy and compassion side women will do well, and it's a mix. All countries, companies will put together a team to handle this situation, to come out of this situation. That that team should have a balance of men and women, so that we can look at all as with the financial aspect, as well as the emotional aspect of people, and get the company to recover with the people in it. You may have a company, then without the most of the people who really put their sweat into the company at the bottom levels. So there are a lot of disparity in incomes or pay levels in companies, lot of disparity. So I'm sure this is an opportunity, that transformation opportunity, which why do we need to, can we take a cut? Some companies are doing that, and without firing anybody or without laying off anybody, can we compromise here? Those are the attributes that women can also bring out very well.
So. Sure. So if I may add here, Dr. Janaki, in my humble opinion, people will always be the most important asset for any organization. Even with all this technology, people will play an integral role, especially in the post-COVID-19 redevelopment in each and every country. Now, let's move this discussion a little bit towards training, upskilling, and reskilling. How important do you think it is for people to redefine job roles, multi-skill themselves, reskill themselves, and what are some of the strategies that companies can adopt?
I mean, it's happening, automatically, the upskill and reskill, because we didn't have a choice. We didn't plan to work from home all of a sudden. Just one day we were told to go home, and then the next day, say from tomorrow, you had to work. So a lot of people, I have worked in the government sector in Sri Lanka also, a lot of people who didn't want to even learn IT skills or to work with, see what we are doing, these webinars and all that, which we were too lazy earlier, to attend to this kind of seminars. We just preferred the physical, face-to-face meetings, the going to office. So, but here, given again, like I said, when people are pushed against the wall, we had no choice but to learn computers, learn little things even that people didn't know about IT, and people have already learned. And I'm saying we should keep there's always a silver lining in all this. We should keep the good things we learn through this. So good things is like we don't need to physically travel so much for face-to-face meetings anymore. Again, in the government sector, I try to promote that so much way before, but like people, we spend the whole day traveling for the meeting, and then maybe spend 2 hours on a meeting, and then when you're so these will now, we have got used to it. We had hopefully they will stay, and the people are learning. The children see the classes, the distance learning. Teachers who thought, this cannot be done, or why should we learn this? Why is they are doing it? It's happening fine. So a lot of new skills. We are learning the new sectors of people. Earlier it was the IT people who talked about all this, and it remained in that. Now it has become like a life skill almost, the IT. And then we are learning a lot about our personal hygiene, or those things also coming in, which things we took for granted. Did we think so much about washing hands? How many videos have you seen about how to wash your hands properly? Right? This is like what we learned in nursery, Montessori, how to wash your hands. But that's, you have to look at this. It's a paradigm shift. I'm saying, look at this totally differently, and the skill sets are coming out right now while we are still during the crisis. It has been IT related and your personal hygiene related, and looking after others, emergency reaction, like for the forces or for the medical frontline people. There have been different skills. This is not what they are used to also, so we must make, and not to come at this, everybody talks about coming back to normal. I say, don't go back to the normal we had, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. Go back to a new normal where we really learn and use the lessons we learn here. That is why even this time, the delay, see, it was not like the tsunami or a cyclone or the things we had where it was like over before we know it, and we forgot the tragedy and we forgot the pain very soon. But here it's like dragging it until we really learn it. I think somebody up there is dragging the crisis long enough and spreading it over so many countries. It's wide and long until we learn it. So whatever skills we learn will be beneficial to us in this time, and we have to keep practicing.
Thanks, Dr. Janaki. I'm now moving into training and development also a little bit in detail here, because there is a good possibility, and we are already seeing this, hearing this, and there's discussions going on that companies might cut their discretionary budgets like training and development. And then on top of that, we got social distancing norms now. So face-to-face training may not happen, at least for the next 3 to 6 months from country to country. So in your perspective, what should companies look like? Should they cut training budgets, or should they really focus on reallocating their budgets to the new skills which are required?
I think we'll have to reallocate. I mean, even within my organization, there was no choice but to train these people on these new skills. Otherwise, we can't continue. We will if the people already have the new skills that are required in this new world post-COVID, then that's they may cut that budget. But if not, we have to reallocate, and that will be a survival technique to get the people trained in the new skills that are required. So it will be this distance learning kind of training. I don't think we have a choice there. But eventually, I think we will get tired and bored with that. We are humans, so we'll have to come back to that face-to-face training. But as long as it is needed, we will have to do the training also in this manner, distance through cameras. And I think even teachers and children are going through a different experience through learning like this. Can you train people in compassion? Can you train the leaders of organizations in sharing? I don't know. So maybe those are other skills, or not skills, values that people will have to bring out. It's already there in all of us. So we'll have to bring that out. And so this, some of it is we won't have a choice. Even like the micro enterprises I'm working with, all this time we were telling them, start simple things like, you might think this, using emails, using WhatsApp, using online orders, they didn't want to learn. There are other ways available, so why bother? Now they wish so much that they have done that, because otherwise we could have done some business now, even through online orders or deliveries, or what is happening now. They can't adapt to this new order of things because they didn't learn those skills. So that is already people are seeing the value that of these new skills that are required. And generations, it's a younger generation was always savvy with this. They asked, the older generation thought, this is not for me. I'm now over 60. I don't need to learn this. They are learning now. They are all talking Zoom and all that, so this is interesting.
Yeah, and I think another interesting point that we've seen over the last 4 to 5 weeks is that the smaller companies, even though they've been impacted the most, have been able to be nimble and agile more than some of the larger organizations. We talked about online deliveries and so forth, and we've seen some of the larger organizations really struggling but we've seen our neighborhood small grocery store that we've totally forgotten about, being agile, using technology, and providing essential services to the Sri Lankan households. It seems to be a similar case in South Asia as well, in most of the other countries. Which comes to my other point, Dr. Janaki. Now, the World Economic Forum typically talks about some of the new skills which are required for the new decade. And we're talking about new skills. Other than technology skills and the soft skills that you talked about, in your professional opinion, what would be the top 3 skills that employees at any level should have if they are to move forward in the new world that we're all talking about?
Agility, like to be able to change, because it's such a changing environment that we talk the environment change, climate change. We have pushed this aside. We can't ignore this. So I think people to be able to change quickly needed, to be street smart. So we will need. I think these skills, other than what I was saying, the compassion and sharing, I mean, we have gone too far, I think, to the extreme of the way we were running companies or even running countries. So these skills will have to be, this is an emergency response, caring for the others. Like you say, the neighborhood store, back in the picture, I used to work in retail before. So it was all these big supermarkets coming and taking over the small neighborhood guys' business. But now all of a sudden we appreciate the neighborhoods. And a lot of friends have told me, I didn't even know, that there's this guy in the corner and, his shop, now I'm buying from him. So maybe these are also ways that business models will have to change. And all this less travel of our produce will also save the environment. If you're making the vegetables in one corner of the country, transporting it to an economic center in another corner, and then finally the retail is in a, so how much of fossil fuel we are using to transport our produce? So if produce here is consumed closer, all these things will make sense in many ways. This is we'll have to look at a new world coming up. And you were asking that other than IT, you saw how many new companies were very innovative, and we haven't heard. I have a new list of companies that are into food business and essential business who just popped up during this crisis, who popped out in the last 3 weeks or something. So be innovative, understanding the consumer, understand the consumer in this. Those are standard things, but in this particular time will be skills. But I think the biggest one you need is to be agile and to be able to adjust and to change and take your business to make it survive regardless of the.
Thanks, Dr. Janaki. I got just one more question in the first round before we get into some of the questions. We get a lot of questions pouring in. I can see it on my phone as well. Yeah. So I'll try to select the most important ones because some of them are duplicating as well. It seems like you got a positive response from one of the viewers saying that yes, females tend to do better in scenarios like this, and there are certain Forbes reports also supporting you on that. Yeah. Well done on that. What are the top 5 leadership skills or types of leadership, or the tips that you can give leaders, Dr. Janaki, based on your experience, considering the pandemic that we faced and the rather uncertain future? If you can pinpoint 5 tips for the benefit of the viewers, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, since you're saying 5, I will reiterate: sharp, focused thinking, clarity in your thinking as a leader. The issues at hand are too complex and looks too difficult to overcome. Not only a leader of a company, the president of America doesn't seem to know what to do. I mean, not to put down, I'm saying they're all human, right? All these, our leaders are also human. So sharp, focused thinking and clarity in your thinking. You have to also look after your health as a leader. Otherwise, this stress is too much. This stress of like you're responsible for all these people's employment, their families, their lives, the stress on you, and then this is so many things out of your control. Look after your health, be compassionate, always put yourself in the employee's shoes and try to understand, okay, how is that person going to live, if I do this. Be generous in terms of cut the bottom line, cut the salaries of the top and the middle, and try to save everyone if you can, not to, let's chop off the bottom 20% or certain other people and keep it. But you have to still be sure that if you have to close down the company by trying to keep all people, that's not the way to go, but try to make sure it is fair and distributed to everybody and still keep everybody on board. And then the fifth one is to be bold and innovative, so blue ocean strategy or whatever you're going to think of, because most of the time crisis makes us become really innovative. The cliche that you have to think out of the box, I'm saying it's not relevant anymore. We have been thrown out of the box. We've been just basically thrown out to now figure out how to survive, how to live as human beings, how to live with the animals, how to live with the environment, how to live, so sharp clarity in your thinking, look after your health, be compassionate, be generous, and be bold and innovative. From my personal point of view, I think what you need to survive.
Well, wonderful words of wisdom. I'm sure that everybody watching this and viewing this online via Facebook and YouTube will definitely appreciate the candid thoughts of Dr. Janaki Kuruppu. So we are now going to go into a few of the questions that we got from viewers. Some very interesting ones, very touchy and feely ones as well. Dr. Janaki, so this is the first question. What is the role of policymakers post-pandemic? What will be the priorities and how should leaders respond to this?
In terms of government, right? So, I think once again we are doing this paradigm shift, the social economic policies. I hope the governments will realize the value of some socialist economic policies, which we again threw out of the window, saying and went to total capitalism. Governments are giving so many handouts for people just to survive. So that is needed. So we are, I think, coming back to that. But I don't believe in these handouts for so long. They become dependent on that. It is to, if somebody is doing some work, help them to keep that work. Give the handouts in a way that you can sustain their livelihood, not just freebie that you can spend on your food. Of course, that's also needed at this particular moment, but immediately now, soon after this, we have to look after sustaining livelihoods of the people, because that way they will then be able to get up and survive in the medium and longer term. So maybe by the self-employed people or the SMEs, ways to sustain their livelihood, we can promote their products now because of this import-export limitations right now. We are an island nation, and so much of things are imported here. So there's a focus on locally produced things right now, because again, for matter of no choice. If it's difficult to import anything here, then we'll have to look at how to promote those products and get companies to up and going. How to reduce cost of production if there are taxes put on raw materials, or is there any government can help that way. What I'm saying is, overall the final objective of the government should be to help sustain the livelihoods of people. Give them, like in agriculture, we are giving free fertilizer and things like that, to make them not that just that handout to eat today, but to sustain their livelihood. That will be then easier for the government and the people to come out of this crisis that we are in. And then working capital to help to pay salaries so that you don't have to lay off anyone. So this kind of policy change in policy formulation, I feel would help at this time, again, from what I have seen so far. And then corruption, I hope that there is none of that happening during this time in anywhere around the world. But you never know. So maybe there's another lesson to learn, that really care for the people and really try to see how to get out of the other. We'll be back to square one. So the human race have been given this opportunity to change how we live, how the society operates. So go back to originally what human beings are meant to be, caring for the others and looking after the environment and so on. So there are so many cliche things, but I think my biggest message I want to give is that, the strongest message, don't waste this opportunity that we've been given to do a paradigm shift in our thinking and living habits.
Sure. Thank you for that. Another question which comes about is with relevance to the daily wage workers. There are a lot of daily wage workers, from the lunch packet vendors to the three-wheeler drivers, the sweep ticket sellers or lottery ticket sellers, etc. Now, these people are definitely going to be on the receiving end. And unfortunately, with whatever economic stimulus package as well, these people may not be looked into too much for various reasons. From your point of view, from a daily wage earner perspective, what do you think are some of the areas that they need to be thinking about in order to ensure that their livelihoods are turned around and they are back to normal and they can survive? I'll just give you an example. Recently, with all these online deliveries and ordering, we've seen a lot of the three-wheelers getting into delivery mode. So maybe the deliveries might be one of their main businesses or business models. So what do you think, Dr. Janaki, that these people have to focus on? Because there's a huge amount of daily wage earners in Sri Lanka.
True. I mean, in that area, because if the people themselves can figure out another alternative things to do during taking an opportunity that has become available, that's great. But otherwise, I think as a government also, we have to look at overall. And while some sectors or some businesses you're not able to do, there are some new areas that have opened up. So maybe, like I heard, Walmart is trying to hire people who worked in restaurants who are being laid off because they have a lot of more business in retail with delivery and door-to-door delivery and so on. So like that, with one industry, like our hotel sector, our tourism sector is affected a whole lot. So are there other areas? Now see, hotels, there are a lot of people who use housekeeping people. Maybe those people can be used into, we need more sanitation practices in our offices and factories and companies now. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. But if use the people who have lost the opportunity in a particular area of work because of social distancing or because of cities being locked down, we'll have to look at other areas to keep them employed, like agriculture. So it could be temporary, or who knows, they might just move into that area and choose that as their regular employment thereafter. But it is that study we need to do. Okay, these sectors, these areas are slowly dying down. Then we have to do, like, even barber salons. I mean, there's a lot of discussion on USA is opening up, and then people are not happy about it, some people. So how you still need to get a haircut, right? I mean, so how do you, so we have to think of a way, how can people get their haircuts hereafter, So like that, there are essential services, but the way we have been delivering it so far is not going to work, at least in the medium term. So then let us find out a way to deliver that same service in another way. So like that, the three-wheeler, we can't use it for taxi purpose anymore right now, but we can use it for delivery purposes. So that kind of really looking at this whole plethora of occupations that will be out of work immediately, we have to really look at, okay, these are the areas that have opened up. Let's try to see whether we can use them there, push them to that area right now. That's a study that has to be done.
On a lighter note, thank God I decided to have this hairstyle with the challenges of the haircuts.
No problem for you. Yeah, I know.
And so
I
forth.
think people are wondering now, if they lift the curfew, how am I going to come out? I haven't had a haircut. So.
Sure. So few more interesting questions, Dr. Janaki. This is about Sri Lanka having, and I think it's similar in most parts of this region in particular, a lot of freelancers, whether it's on technology side or professional side. And we've heard that the gig economy has been gaining momentum over the last few years. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, they're first to get cut off in many areas, but innovation, I mean, like I said, the simple barber guy, we have to see how to, what is the alternative way for this to survive. I'm not very much of I haven't studied that area to give you much insight there.
Sure. So another question that is coming about is, see, leadership can be sometimes a little bit of a lonely place. People feel that when you get into the top echelons of the corporate ladder, that everything is settled, done and dusted. But it can be a bit of a lonely place where fear, anxiety, and stress is a normal. In that scheme of things, this question relates to, we've heard the terminology corporate athleticism. You also talked about being healthy if you are to steer the ship these days. But moving back a little bit more deeper into that subject, what are some of the things from a personal point of view as a leader that you need to keep in mind so that you are focused, you can re-strategize and recalibrate once these lockdowns are over and business comes back into usual? What are some of the mantras or the tips that you can adopt as an individual and as a leader?
I mean, I have always believed in this, your physical fitness, keeping fit. It is a real boost, a mood booster, and it's anyway good for your health more than the mood also. And be knowledgeable. I mean, you have to keep on updating yourself on what's happening in the world, even though, right now you would rather not watch TV and learn about another crisis or another, how bad the crisis is getting. But we still have to be up to date on, even in a crisis situation or not in a crisis situation, of what's happening out there in your industry, in your country, in the world. So keeping up to date. So personal things of mindfulness, meditation helps. You can be very strong with that practice on not get confused or lose track of what's going on, to be at that clarity of thinking, what I was telling. So that'll help. People orientation, I mean, that I don't know, maybe because I'm a woman I'm saying this, but always thinking of that emotional side, whether it's the passion, be passionate about what you're doing. So those things actually help you ride storms, not to lose hope, not to give up. You just reinvent when you have passion for something. You just keep reinventing yourself, relaunching.
Thank you, Dr. Janaki. I think we got loads and loads of questions, but unfortunately time is not on our side. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you today, to spend this Saturday evening talking about leadership and how to weather the storm during a crisis and post-crisis. I think to the viewers, you might have identified that we were not getting industry specific in today's discussion, but rather focusing on the hard and soft sides of leadership, the areas where you need to improve on, the importance of training and development of your staff, even during and post-COVID-19 times, also ensuring the mindfulness aspect of it, the compassionate leadership style, the importance of being close to your people, etc. So some of the areas that we tend to forgotten about in most of the webinars and programs, because we've been extremely industry specific. So thank you very much, Dr. Janaki, for your time. And for the viewers, thank you very much for spending your time listening to this webinar organized by TLR Now. And one final message before we end today's proceedings. I think the entire world is suffering from this particular pandemic. But together as one world, with humanity, compassion, and with long-sighted thinking, we can definitely get over this. It's time for collaboration. It's time for partnerships. There is no room for myopic thinking or selfishness. And together, let's work together and make this world a better place. Tough times don't continue, but tough teams remain. So take this note, stay safe, be responsible, protect each other, take care of your loved ones, and have a wonderful time. So from everybody at TLR now, this is me, Nirmal, and Dr. Janaki Kuruppu, wishing you everybody in traditional sense, Ayubowan, and thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.